HPE7-A07 exam practice questions with explanations are available in the video for you to study. Which two factors most directly influence the modulation and coding scheme (MCS) selection in an Aruba WLAN environment? Select 2. A. Signal-to-noise ratio, SNR. B. Retry rate. C. Channel utilization. D. Number of connected clients. E. Frequency band. The answer is A. The modulation and coding scheme, MCS, used by wireless stations is directly affected by the signal-to-noise ratio, SNR, and the frequency band. Higher SNR can lead to higher MCS values, which means better data rates. The frequency band can affect MCS due to different channel characteristics, such as the presence of interference and propagation properties, which are factors in determining data rates. In an Aruba CX campus network with two VSX aggregation switches connected to access switches via lags, what is the recommended configuration step to ensure multi-chassis link aggregation, MC-lag, consistency across the VSX pair? A. Use a custom LACP hash algorithm for improved load balancing. B. Keep the MTU values at the default setting for GRE and VXLAN communications. C. Use the command VSX sync McLag interfaces under the VSX context. D. Use the command VSX sync active gateways under the VSX context. The answer is C. When configuring virtual switching extension, VSX, in a campus topology for link aggregation across two aggregation switches, it is important to synchronize multi-chassis link aggregation group, MC-lag, interfaces. The command, VSX sync McLag interfaces, ensures that the state and configuration of MC-lag interfaces are synchronized between the two VSX link switches, providing consistent link aggregation and preventing any loops or mismatched configurations that might occur if the interfaces were not in sync. A customer uses HPE Aruba Networking Central with Rapids to detect rogue APs and needs to identify which switch port a rogue AP is connected to. How does Aruba Central determine the physical switch port to which the rogue AP is connected? A. Device profiling on the switch. B. From the AP MAC address table. C. From the switched LLDP neighbors table. D. From the switched MAC address table. The answer is D. HPE Aruba Networking Central can identify which switch port a rogue AP is connected to by using the switch's MAC address table. The MAC address table contains the associations between MAC addresses and the switch ports to which devices, including APs, are connected. When Aruba Central detects a rogue AP, it can look up the MAC address of the rogue AP in the switch's MAC address table to find the specific switch port it is connected to. This enables network administrators to quickly locate and address the rogue AP issue. A customer uses Aruba gateway clusters with both primary and secondary clusters defined in the SSID profile. Based on Aruba best practices, wire their 120 APs equally split between the primary and secondary clusters, even though both clusters are online? A. The primary gateway cluster is a heterogeneous cluster with 6 nodes. B. The primary and secondary gateway clusters are online, and cluster preemption is enabled. C. The secondary gateway cluster is a homogeneous cluster with 6 nodes. D. The primary and secondary gateway clusters are online, but cluster preemption is not enabled. The answer is D. When cluster preemption is not enabled, access points, APs, will not automatically fail back to the primary gateway cluster once it is up again after having failed over to the secondary. This would result in an equal split of APs across primary and secondary clusters if both clusters are operational. Without preemption, there's no automatic rebalancing of APs back to the primary cluster, leading to the current distribution. A client connects to a tunneled open SSID, but ends up in the wrong VLAN. The customer uses a gateway-based architecture and provides packet captures from a mirrored switch port, as well as captures from the IPsec and GRE tunnels. Where would you identify the VLAN assigned to the client from the controller to the AP? A. The GRE tunnel will include the VLAN tag assignment. B. VLAN tag assignment will not be visible in any of the packet captures. C. The IPsec tunnel will include the VLAN tag assignment. D. VLAN tag assignment will be visible in the switch port mirror capture. The answer is A. In Aruba's tunneled SSID architecture, traffic from the controller to the AP is encapsulated in a GRE tunnel. The VLAN tag is typically embedded in the GRE header metadata, so analyzing the GRE tunnel capture is the correct way to identify the VLAN assignment. IPsec encapsulates the GRE traffic but does not show inner VLAN info directly. A switch port mirror may show encrypted or encapsulated traffic but won't expose VLAN tagging within the GRE tunnel. A customer wants their IT helpdesk to onboard IoT devices to a single SSID using unique pre-shared keys, PSKs, per device, ensuring that each device cannot use another's credentials. What is the most appropriate solution to recommend? AMPSK-AES with MAC authentication, BMPSK local, CMPSK-AES with Cloud Auth, DMPSK-AES with ClearPass. The answer is D. Multi-pre-shared key, MPSK, with ClearPass is the recommended solution for a scenario where the IT helpdesk needs to configure IoT devices to connect to a single SSID using unique PSKs. MPSK allows for the use of different PSKs on the same SSID, and ClearPass enables the management of these unique keys efficiently. According to best practices, when an SSID is configured with both a primary and secondary gateway cluster and cluster preemption is enabled, who determines if APs should move to the secondary cluster when the primary cluster is completely unreachable? A. The tunnel orchestrator for LAN tunnel service in HPE Aruba Networking Central. B. Each AP individually. C. The cluster leader in the primary gateway cluster. D. The cluster leader in the secondary gateway cluster. The answer is B. In an Aruba network, if an SSID is configured for a primary and secondary gateway cluster with cluster preemption enabled, Each AP individually will decide to move to the secondary gateway cluster if all of the nodes in the primary gateway cluster are down. This decentralized decision-making process enhances network resilience and ensures uninterrupted service for clients connected to the APs. In a high-density wireless environment, which transmission method most efficiently utilizes airtime for latency-sensitive applications such as VoIP? AFDMA, frequency division multiple access. BOFDM, orthogonal frequency division multiplexing. CMU-MIMO, multi-user multiple input multiple output. DTWT, target wake time. The answer is C. MU-MIMO, multi-user, multiple input, multiple output, provides the most efficient use of airtime for VoIP traffic among the options listed. MU-MIMO allows multiple users to receive multiple data streams simultaneously, improving the overall efficiency of the network, especially in dense environments where VoIP applications need consistent and reliable connectivity. In a deployment where both primary and secondary gateway clusters are configured in the SSID profile, under which valid condition would an AP fail over to the secondary gateway cluster? A. The primary gateway cluster is up, but the AP is unable to reach the primary gateway cluster. B. The secondary gateway cluster is up, but the AP is unable to reach the secondary gateway cluster. C. The secondary gateway cluster is heterogeneous. D. The secondary gateway cluster is homogeneous. The answer is A. In Aruba's infrastructure, the access points, APs, are configured with primary and secondary gateway clusters to ensure connectivity and resiliency. The APs will fail over to the secondary gateway cluster if they are unable to reach the primary gateway cluster, even if the primary cluster is operational. This mechanism ensures that the APs maintain connectivity to the network infrastructure for continuous service delivery. A customer is running out of IP addresses in an existing subnet and decides to add another IP subnet to the same VLAN. What will be the result of this configuration? A. Broadcasts from both subnets will be seen on all ports in the same VLAN. B. IGMP will not function across the two subnets in the same VLAN. C. This setup results in a single SVI using two subinterfaces. D. Clients in different subnets will be able to communicate peer-to-peer without routing. The answer is A. VLANs are Layer 2 broadcast domains. Adding multiple IP subnets to the same VLAN does not separate broadcast traffic. Layer 2 broadcasts are still forwarded to all ports in that VLAN. A is correct because devices from either subnet will generate broadcasts that traverse the entire VLAN.